topic that we're pleased to share with our members. And it's also not timely. We had a little funny exchange when we were preparing for this call. We've got a whole bunch of documents in storage, which is a boring story in and of itself, but I'm going through all these news clippings that go back about 20 years. Don't ask us why we kept them, but they're there in our storage. And there's a letter from Mayor Wellington Webb asking the AIA for their input on plans to streamline the permitting process and make it easier for folks to get their projects through. And so it's not a new issue. It's an issue that we're continually wrestling with, but it's also one of those good news, bad news things. If we had the opposite scenario where an architect can bring their plans to the city and get it through really fast, it'd probably be because we don't have a lot of work happening. So I'm not sure that we would want that scenario necessarily to be taking place. It is largely driven by volume and the complexity of what our clients want and what we want for our society in the built environment too. So it's an issue that's not one of pure, I don't want to say process oriented or people that want to make things difficult. Every major urban area has these challenges, and we're navigating as best they can. And so we're going to hear the latest iteration of how we're dealing with this. So I'll ask our presenters today to say hello. We have Jill Jennings Golich and Robert Peak. And I do want to give a shout out to our regional urban design team and our Denver local advisors who both said, hey, we should do a program on this. And as soon as we mentioned it to the city, they said, we would love to do a program on this. So here we are to share with our members the latest and greatest happenings on the office as it is newly constituted. So Jill, you want to start?
Sure. Thank you so much for having us. Let's hopefully see if this works here. Says I'm screen sharing. Are you all seeing anything?
Yes, looks good, Jill.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, awesome. Well, yeah, I'll do a quick introduction and let Robert introduce himself as well. We're very excited to be here today and really look forward to a conversation. Even though we have slides, if you have questions and you want to interject, I'm happy to have this be more of a dialogue. So hi, everyone. For those I haven't met, I'm Jill Jennings Golich, and I am the director of the newly created Denver Permitting Office. I have been at the city, this is my second time at the city, at community planning and development for most of that time, but was very fortunate that the mayor tapped me to help lead our permitting Tiger Team efforts last year in conjunction with Molly Urbina, Deputy Chief Operating Officer in the mayor's office. And then Robert Peak was really our right-hand project manager who's been working on our process and systems for quite some time. So excited to transition into this role and to work with our amazing city team and our great customers to really hopefully make some transformational changes to our permitting process. Robert, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jill. And it's nice to meet everybody and excited to be on this call today. But I'm Robert Peak. I'm our Director of Development Systems Performance. And I was formerly housed within our Community Planning and Development Department as well, but my position was sponsored by the Mayor's Office. And so I've kind of transitioned over to the Denver Permitting Office, so in a very similar role. Before I came on with Community Planning and Development, I was with the city's Central Process Improvement Group. They're called Peak Academy, really focusing on city operations as a whole. But I'm excited to take this on and have some new authority to make changes across the city.
All right, so we will dive in and then just jump in, and hopefully you all aren't seeing the little side thing with everyone's pictures on it, because I know the worst thing in the world about hybrid meetings is I have seen my face so much over the last 5 years, way more than I care to. So if that's happening, let me know. So a few things we wanted to talk about today. We wanted to give you an overview of the Denver Permitting Office, what this means moving forward for permitting and submittals. Robert's going to talk a little bit about some changes we have just launched with our concept site plan, as well as formal site plan process. I'll share a little bit about an effort CPD has been working on, and when I was there, I was a huge proponent of looking at our regulations, because a lot of our process is driven by our regulations. And then we'll spend just a minute at the end talking about our Proposition 123 fast track process and what that is. So I'll dive in with DPO, or Denver Permitting Office overview. So as I mentioned, I had the pleasure of leading the permitting Tiger team last year, and that was all a result of our 2024 citywide goals. So you probably saw this last year, won't spend very much time on it, but we were focused on reducing our city review time by 30%, and then really re-looking and looking at how do we handle development permitting in the city. So briefly, I will just share some highlights. We were pretty successful in terms of our reduction in city review time. So you can see a couple things here. We were able to achieve a 37% reduction, single family duplex reviews, 17% in existing commercial industrial tenant finish, and a 28% reduction in days to provide first and second round review comments for formal site development plans. We worked on a number of initiatives last year. There's still a number that are ongoing and more work to be done to really help kind of streamline our processes and make improvements for our customers. And I think that's what I'm most excited about in moving to this new role. So how did we get here? So as I mentioned, as part of last year's efforts, right, re-envisioning the review system. And so we looked at the structure. How are we as a city organized to do development review? We interviewed departmental leadership. We to get their take on how do they think things are working, what are the areas for improvement. We listened to our customers through various group meetings and individual feedback. Also heard from our city council members and the questions and frustrations they often get for their residents and businesses located within their districts. We looked at our regulatory structure, our charter requirements, and a little bit to Mike's point, we did look at sort of what has been done previously, what's worked and what hasn't. And also building off of what Mike said, I've had a number of conversations with cities across the country over the last year and continue to, and this is not a challenge unique to Denver. Robert and I were just sort of talking about how do we build a coalition of city leaders to really help share feedback and ideas and what's working and what isn't, because this sadly is, or fortunately, I don't know what the right answer is not unique to Denver. So where we were at the end of the day, this is the problem that we're solving for, and probably nothing you all don't know. We have multiple review processes involving multiple city agencies and departments that are needed for any final project approval and permits. There's different review steps, there's different authorities. Each department has their own priorities, and this leads to delays and inconsistencies. And this is a problem because our business community, our residents, expect and deserve a vibrant and thriving city that supports their ability to make investments. And obviously you all, as architects, are a critical partner in that work. Delays in the permitting as well as licensing process lead to missed opportunities for economic growth, and it negatively impacts our city's revenue and likely causes improvements that are maybe being made without the appropriate permits. So causes some potential life safety concerns. So we, as part of our work last year, made a number of recommendations to the mayor, and that led to his issuance of the Executive Order 151 on April 14th of this year. It is hard to believe that was 3 months ago. This 3 months has gone the fastest, I think, of any in my entire life. It feels like it was yesterday. But so that executive order creates the Denver Permitting Office within the Office of the Mayor. So I am now in an appointee position, reporting up through the mayor. This executive order outlines key commitments, which I'll talk about shortly, outlines roles and responsibilities not only for the Denver Permitting Office, which is 3 of us, but also permitting staff. So one thing that did not change with the executive order is I don't have 300 people across what was 6 departments reporting to me. They are still within their department structure. But when it comes to the work that they are doing related to permitting, we have the authority within the Denver Permitting Office and working in close conjunction with the Executive Permitting Committee, which I'll talk about in a minute, to create policies, procedures, to oversee the process as it relates to permitting for all private property development. That executive order, while announced on April 14th, went into effect on May 14th, and you can see all the departments here. that are really critical to the permitting as well as licensing process. Because for some, it's not just you need a permit at the end of the day to do what you want to do. You might need a permit and a license. And how do we really streamline and improve that process to really help our customers succeed? So I mentioned the Executive Permitting Committee, or EPC, the executive order. Established this because at the end of the day, we recognize that each department has their specific authority as outlined in the charter. One idea probably has been talked about for years is, well, why don't you just create one permitting department, right? That would require a charter change, which requires a vote of the people. It's a tremendous amount of work and effort to go into something like that. And so what we really acknowledged was we need to respect that charter authority, recognize that for each department has their authority over their specific areas. And so we can't, forget about that. It's critical to success. And so the Executive Permitting Committee, and I work with them and meet with them monthly, really provides us that oversight coordination across all the departments that are involved. And we've also included DEDO, Department of Economic Development and Opportunity, to make sure that we are hearing from our economic development partners what's happening, because our work from a permitting standpoint, right, is driving economic development and investment in this city. So you heard me say I don't have 300 people reporting to me, thank goodness. So what is the Denver Permitting Office? What are we doing? So as I mentioned, we are that group responsible for alignment, accountability, and coordination within the permitting process. So we are looking at the entirety of the process. Each department has their sort of specific, I've been referring to it as a pie, right? You want a pie at the end of the day, and each department has their slice that they're going to give you. You don't care about each slice, you want the entirety of the pie. And so that's what we are looking at, is that holistic perspective, looking at our customers' experience. What are all the things needed to get what you want at the end of the day, which is that approval, that permit, that license, etc. So we are authorized through the executive order to ensure that the process is efficient, consistent, and timely. We have the authority to establish and oversee systems and metrics, coordinate activities of all the city departments and agencies involved in permitting functions, and provide that strategic guidance. So I mentioned previously some key commitments within the executive order, and this is what myself and our team have really been spending a ton of time on since April 14th. So the first is that we will get reviews completed within 180 calendar days of city review time once we accept a complete submittal. So we, and I feel like I am now living in our permitting system with my teammates, looking at projects, what's happening, where are they, what's taking this long and why. And so we have a dashboard that's tracking every project. How many days has it been in city hands? How many days has it been with our customer? Does it have a high review cycle so that we can intervene? Because I'm not naive. There will be projects that exceed 180 days of city review time. But as much as possible, how can we help intervene, problem solve, work with our team, work with our customers to have that not happen? But if it does, they will go to that executive permitting committee of 14 days to do an analysis, to sort of provide information on what's happening, why, what are the challenges, what are the roadblocks. Once executive permitting committee reviews those projects, they will make a determination on what are next steps. We then have 30 days to work with the customer to try to get things resolved. And if at the end of the day, we found that the delay in time and the time exceeded was because of the city, we will issue a refund of either site development plan application fees or building permit plan review fees, depending on which area of the process exceeded 180 days. So that is huge. We are spending a lot of time, as I said, going through data, figuring things out. Where are the trends? What are we seeing? What can we help improve in the process writ large? The other piece is the executive order. Oh yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Something. So that 180 days, that's not an average across all projects. That's each project has that commitment, right? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
How does that compare with maybe the average that you're seeing now? How did you get to 180 days? Is this should be our goal?
Yeah. So It wasn't necessarily magic, if you will. We did look at our data and how long things were taking. Obviously, for smaller projects, they should never take 180 calendar days of city time. But at this point, this was really looking at for projects that have a site development plan and whatnot. How can we be aggressive in really looking at our timeframes? I think, Robert, to date, we're at 280 days on average for site development plans. Is that right?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So this is aggressive. This is, a big change. And there are some things that we'll talk about in a minute, as that Robert will share that we're working on to try to make some improvements there. Yeah, it is a change.
And Jill, to answer a question in the chat.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I can't see that.
The question is the intervention review by DPO not started until a project hits the 180-day mark, or are they being identified earlier in the process as potential issues? So
yes,
yes. So we're building in intervention points throughout the process. So for example, if a project hits 90 days, we'll take a look at that, intervene, and ensure it's back on the right track, but we'll set those periods up. So, 90, 120, 150, and then lastly 180.
And then if you've got a project that's already in process, the 180 days started if any open reviews were there on May 14th. So we're not going back, but I will tell you why I said I'm spending a lot of time in our permitting system is we're looking at our older projects that have been in for quite some time. And even though they are not yet at that 90-day threshold for those that have open reviews, we're digging in and trying to understand what's going on, what's happening, how do we get this to an approval state, especially for those that have been in for quite some time.
Oh, that's good. It's nice that you're not writing off those old projects saying, well, that had a different timeline,
Oh, yeah. No, we want to get
wish
those
them well. And I also think it's interesting that you've not parsed them into different project types. You've not said, well, a large, planned unit is going to have 180 and, a single family residential is going to have 45 and or maybe the large one, we got to move that out to 250. You've said 180, that's our commitment. No matter what project you have, if you want to build in the city, we're going to make that commitment to you.
Right. It's possible in the future that we might set a different timeline for smaller projects. But at this point, right, we're using the 180 and that is our North Star. One of the other key commitments within the executive order was creating escalation policies and procedures. So I think today we know this all happens. There's an issue. Our customers often, and you all, right, often as project leads, working with your client, are the one sort of doing this work of trying to navigate between departments or between teams within one department and getting problems solved. So we have now almost finished. Our interdepartmental escalation policy is complete. I'm working to get that on the website. I'll talk about it really quick here in a minute. So it outlines a structure and timeframes for us to respond, because I think what is critical to success here is this is a collaborative process between our customers and the city. And before, as our customers were navigating that, and we need to really be a partner in that. So I'll talk more about that. But we think that's really going to help get decisions sooner. And obviously, we all know time is money. And the more and quicker that we can get some of these things made and keep projects moving, the better off we all are. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. A couple of other key commitments in the executive order were related to customer service. So we have a 2 business day response time for customer inquiries. Working right now on a counter operations plan. So there are some services that offer appointments, but we haven't really been addressing walk-in customers who don't know where to start or don't know where to go. So we're working on creating a staffing plan for that. We've created a new development permitting landing page, denvergov.org/DPO. It is a start to try to pull together information from across the departments based on customer type. So much more to come, but we're excited about the possibilities of that. And again, providing better resources to our customers to help them through the process. And then the fourth is an evolution of our, what had been project coordinators for the site development plan process. And they are now project champions. And so we're working over this year to evolve that idea. The executive order really empowers them to bring together teams from across the city to resolve challenges, and to work with our customers to support project success. All right, I'd mentioned the interdepartmental escalation policy. So this is applicable to any project under review by the city where a code, regulation, design standard causes a conflict between more than one department. If it is an instance of you're just unwilling to meet a regulatory requirement, that's not a conflict. You'll be directed to apply for a specific adjustment or variance. The interdepartmental escalation process is not the right place. So it has 3 phases. Phase 1 is with staff, supervisors, and customer. Total time of 20 business days to work to get resolution. If we can't reach resolution at the end of that phase 1 process, Denver Permitting Office gets engaged, and then we have 15 days to meet with the customer to understand what happened in phase 1. Phase 1 is really the city team coming together to present ideas for how to resolve. If that doesn't work out, phase 2, we expect the customer team to come to the table with their ideas. They've heard from staff, they know what the issues are. What are your recommendations for how do we help solve this? We may determine in phase 2 right at the start that it might have to go directly to phase 2 or phase 3, apologies. And again, this has to do with charter authority. The executive directors wanted to make sure that they were involved in decisions if it was specific to a conflict between 2 departments' chartered authority. Haven't seen this yet, so I can't say specifically what that will look like. But we'll figure it out as we get there. But there may be some things that just have to be escalated up. And so ideally, again, phase 2, we resolve that. I have the authority to issue decisions, and that will happen within that 15-day time period after consultation with staff and customer. And then the customer has the authority to appeal my decision to the executive permitting committee or an executive director. If they feel like it infringes on their authority, could appeal the decision to the executive permitting committee. So that's that phase 3. It's again only applicable if I escalate something or if the customer or executive director appeals my decision. And we have 6 business days to get that completed. So working to get this online. But at least wanted to provide a high-level overview that we have a process in place to get these resolved as quickly as possible and at the lowest level possible. This is
Jill, before we
question.
move on, could you move back 1 slide real quick? I'll do reverse order on some of the questions here. So one is, how is conflict between more than one department defined?
So if it's a most typical example is Department of Transportation and Infrastructure requirement related to sidewalk, and Department of Parks and Recreation, Office of Forestry, and placement of tree lawn and trees, for example. That's one that comes up pretty often. So that is how that is defined. I will say, if someone says, and setback is just the easiest example, so I realize this does not cross departments, but it's the easiest to wrap my mind around. If someone says you have to do a 5-foot setback and department, so that's Department X, Department Y says you have to do a 7-foot setback, the most stringent requirement applies. You have to do a 7-foot setback. That's not a conflict.
Okay. And then another question is there transparency on the client side to see how long projects have been in city review, or is that for the design team to track?
So we are not yet at a point, and as it relates to the 180 days, I think that's what this question is, of having a public dashboard. I think that's something we'll talk about in the coming months of how do we create this that could be public. It is messy right now. So quite honestly, there's just a lot of data cleanup and things we need to get through. But yes, I think ideally at the end of the day, I would love to have something that is public facing. We're just not there yet.
Okay. And then an earlier question was, is there a timeline commitment for permit alone when SP is not required, but includes SUDP?
Yeah, can you can you confirm or clarify what you mean by SP?
Kathy, if you
Kathy,
enumerate on that a little bit more.
Yeah, site plan. She referred to the site plan process earlier with the 180 days. And I just thought 6 months for site plan plus permit. That sounds really great. But if it's just permit, yikes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's per application. So I mean, yes, it would be awesome if we get through SDP and building permit approval within 180 days. But right now it's 180 days for the SDP application and then 180 days for the building permit application. Now I will say there's some overlap between the two. So building permit, could start halfway through the STP approval. But our goal is to kind of whittle both those timelines down as much as possible. And as far as SUDP goes, SUDP is included on the permit review, so they're integrated into that, and so the 180 days would account for SUDP.
And we are encouraging customers to apply for simultaneous reviews as much as possible. I think that process within the site development plan world is a little murky. Customers have to usually ask, can we submit for building permitting? And then sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, and it's a process we don't control. So a customer may choose to move forward to permitting right away and may not. And I think certainly right now we're seeing more are not moving forward yet to building permitting. So
And who brings up the conflicts? Is it the design team or the city reviewers that are identifying?
it's either can identify. So whether the customer and their team finds a conflict, or if one of the reviewers either have the ability to start. So what we have asked particularly is that if it's a city staff person, that they check with the customer first to make sure that they agree and there's no issue that they're not seeing.
Okay. And then lastly, I think I know the answer to this. You've got a lot of business days listed here, like 2015 and
Mhm.
6. Your 180-day commitment, that's not 180 business days, that's 180 calendar days.
Yeah. The 180 is calendar days. This is business days because
Yes.
we don't.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, this is our contact information, just so you have it, because it's not yet up on the website. And so with that, unless there's more questions, I'll turn it over to Robert to talk a little bit about our site plan changes we're working on.
Thanks, Jill. We can move to the next slide, Jill. All right, so concept site plan changes, one and done. A piece of feedback we heard from our customers kind of over and over again is that the concept site plan part of our process is much too rigorous. It takes many cycles to get to completion and grant that kind of permission to submit your formal site development plan. So last year we led a staff workshop to brainstorm various solutions to our concept site plan process and overall site development plan process. And what came out of this was this kind of one and done concept. So it really repositions the concept phase as more of a report of findings and feasibility rather than a compliance review step. So we're committing to just doing a single review on the concept and then passing it out. So you can submit for your formal site development plan application. Now, if the customer needs additional rounds or needs more certainty that their project is truly feasible, then the customer can request additional review cycles, and we can do a more thorough review. But the idea here is that we would do one review, provide comments back to the customer, really solely based on feasibility and kind of major red flags that you will then have to address when you submit for your formal site development plan. And that launched on just 9 days ago or so, on July 14th. So we're excited to officially launch this new way of reviewing our concept site plans.
And I'll just chime in before Robert moved to the next one. I think what was critical, and Robert mentioned this, was as a result of feedback from our customers, that we as a city were asking for things that you all and your clients were not yet at a point to give to us. And we were really out of sync with the design process. And so we're really trying to recognize that. Obviously, it does shift risk to the formal site development plan phase, but I think originally the intent had been that the pre-app would cut down on cycles in the formal side, and we weren't seeing that. What we were seeing was a lot of cycles on concept, a lot of cycles on formal. So I think there's more work to do on formal, but another part of this initiative Robert will talk about next is seeking to address some of that as well.
So another piece of feedback we heard from our customers was providing more guidance around what's actually required when you all submit for a formal site development plan. So the staff are hard at work right now building out more thorough completeness check documents. So when we, to ensure that we're accepting a quality submittal. Whereas in the past, we would just take the application without really doing a thorough intake review and then assign out the reviews. And that's problematic because there are bound to be issues. And then we just have to kick it back to the customer and say, hey, I need you to address these issues before I can actually start my review. And that adds a whole cycle to the process. So by just adding more thorough completeness checks up front, we hope to at least shave off 1 to 2 cycles through the formal site development plan process here. And which will allow kind of more guidance to you, and it'll also provide our staff with a higher quality submittal. So we're on the third bullet point here. It says we're soft launching these completeness reviews for a couple months to ensure kind of customer awareness. So we're not just declining everything we get on day one that we launch. So we'll send back the completeness check guide, and then after we have a little more adoption, then we'll make it more mandatory.
And this is really critical, I think, building off. I think the thing I hear about the most on site development plan, or one of the biggest frustrations, is formatting comments and alignment, and that each team member liked things done a different way. So one of the initiatives we did last year was to create the site development plan manual. If you don't have it, if you want to put your email in the chat, we can make sure that it's shared out. I'm not sure it's on CPD's website yet, but they've been sharing it out with project teams as customers come in. And this is really meant to standardize requirements and content to improve consistency. So you're not dealing with, well, someone likes it this way and someone else likes it somewhere else. And we also found over time that people were asking for things within the site development plan that really weren't necessary from a regulatory perspective. So trying to get aligned on what actually has to be included in the site development plan, and taking out those things that are not required. I see that I'm guessing the chat must be popping with questions because the whole thing at the top keeps moving.
It says, yes, please share the manual. So we
Okay.
can share that out to John and Mike after this call to distribute to you all.
Any other questions, or should we move to the next part? Okay. So I wanted to highlight really quick the regulatory diagnostic project that community planning and development has been working on this year. As I mentioned previously, a lot of our process is driven by our regulations, and our regulations citywide, right, have really only gotten more complex over time for a number of reasons. So while I was in community planning and development, I felt really strongly that we needed to take a hard look at our regulations. How were they working? Were we getting the outcomes that we wanted to see as a city, that we heard from our community through our adopted plans? And how were our regulations working to implement? Are there conflicts? So CPD undertook an effort starting this year. We have an outside consultant to really look at primarily the zoning code as well as urban design standards and guidelines, but then assess conflicts with building code, green building ordinance, etc. With a result of really trying to, again, how can we simplify, streamline, and clarify? So earlier this year, there was interviews and surveys and focus groups that were conducted. And this is some of what we heard: a strong desire to simplify and clarify the code, calibrate and update it, resolve conflicts amongst regulations, aligning our regulations with policy goals. Even though our urban design standards and guidelines don't apply to the whole city, where they do, they are at times cumbersome. They have 23 different processes. And so how do we overhaul that? And then at the end of the day, really improve the development review process. And so they are right now working on some findings and evaluating against top policy objectives. Again, some potential changes to the Denver zoning code and the urban design standards and guidelines, really with a focus on housing diversity, having high quality design, and equity in process. So we're looking at, kind of all of it. This is how are our codes organized? What is their structure? How do we simplify and add certainty? For design standards and urban design standards and guidelines, how do we improve quality, housing diversity, and efficiency? And then within our procedures in our organization, we're looking for streamlining and consistency. So this effort will result in a report by the end of this year that CPD will then use to prioritize future regulatory changes. But I'm super excited about this initiative and how we can use it as a model for potentially other departments within the city to really take a step back and a hard look at our regulations. I will say Denver Fire, as well as Community Planning and Development, did this year with the building code, did building and fire code. And so we reduced in the 2025 set of amendments that were, or 2025 code that was passed, I want to say in May by City Council, that goes into effect, I think, either end of this year or early next year. They cut out 30% of local amendments with a real goal of streamlining, using the base code where it makes sense, not having Denver be so unique from our surrounding communities. All right. Robert, you want to talk really briefly about fast track Proposition 123?
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Yes, the fast track process. So the state passed a Proposition 123 that requires communities to develop an expedited fast track project for affordable housing projects. So Denver has committed to this, and we worked with a consultant earlier this year for 5 months to develop a new process for affordable housing projects, going through our concept, site development plan, and permitting process. So Joe, if you go to the next slide. I also wanted to talk about the open house. Thank you for that reminder. So this will be, I think, a great opportunity for you all to learn a little more about the specifics of this new program. On August 20th, we're going to be hosting an open house for everyone to attend to learn more about how this is all going to work. It'll be at from 10:30 to 11:30 at the Wellington Web Building. And we can send out more details with the SDP manual as well. So just quickly, this is how we're reimagining the concept and site development plan process for these affordable housing projects. We're splitting it out into 3 different phases. Each application phase has its own 90 calendar day requirement. So we have to get to approval or some kind of decision within 90 days. And this is all in. So this isn't just city possession time, it's time with both the city and the customer. So there's actually more onus on our customers here to be able to resubmit their designs to us in a timely manner. So phase 1 is still that concept phase where we'll to kind of determine feasibility and see if this program works for you all. But it's also a time to start any variances or administrative adjustments that need to happen that are known. Phase 2 will be is where our kind of traditional site development plan process lives. But the big change here is we're really taking out some of the vertical elements of the site development plan that's in the site development plan today and shifting that over to phase 3 permitting. So the phase 2 is really just the horizontal elements of the site plan. So looking at all your engineering plans and the site itself. And we have a new initiative or innovation to combine all of our civil applications into a single set. So there's a lot of work to be done on that still to kind of figure out all the logistics, but that's the idea. And then once we reach 90 days for phase 2, the customer will then be allowed to submit for phase 3 permitting. And so those are all your vertical elements and construction permits. We hope to, we're going to pilot this in the fall. So we'll identify a few projects that can go through each phase, work out any kinks, and then we hope to kind of formally adopt this early next year.
All right, that was a lot. So happy to just have some general discussion for the last 20 or so minutes.
Great. Thank you so much. Super informative. We've had a couple of questions come in and we're looking for more. So I'll go back to what was previously referenced. So going back to that SDP manual and formatting, what is the intake team looking for? And can it be made clear so teams don't inadvertently submit an incomplete submission? So you're doing the soft launch, the 2-month soft launch on this, completion. Getting more complete submittals. What does a complete submittal mean to you guys?
Yeah, so I think we can share the document that is created. I know their CPD is working on getting it posted online. And we are not the subject matter experts on this to go into detail, but I think it's really about making sure, really using the STP manual to ensure that the right information is there, the right sheets are provided based on the project. In the future with resubmittals, if there are other submittals that are required, have you submitted those other things? Because I will tell you what we often see with site development plan, because it's so intertwined, as you just saw on that fast track slide with so many other submittals, sometimes our teams aren't making some of those DOTI submittals for the civil work. And so we can't, at the end of the day, approve the site development plan until that other stuff is completed. And so that extends cycles and extends time. So I think we're really going to try to focus on how do we make sure projects are being successful, getting in what's necessary and at the right time, and providing better guidance. As one of the things we launched initially with our affordable housing review team was a project tracker. And it's been rolled out, I think, as of last year to all projects, but it outlines what are all your submittals. Are they in good shape, which is red? Is there some concern or on timing, which is yellow, or this hasn't even been submitted and you're behind? And so I think it's colored red, just to try to, again, help our teams, because I think the thing I have, not that I haven't known this, but has really come to light in the last couple of weeks, are the number of different applications that we require. And I think that's something we have tremendous opportunity to look at and streamline. That creates a lot of work for you all and your clients and whatnot. So it's difficult to keep track of all the pieces and parts.
Yes, and we hear that too. We hear that the design team thinks they're done and everything is good, but figures out, oh well, yes, you did apply for these 6, but there's also 2 more that we also need. So that would be a welcome development. Question about is there a streamlined permitting process for city-owned assets or properties?
Good question.
Or city projects, even if
For
they're not.
city projects, yeah.
So the executive order allows city projects to be exempt from some of the requirements in the executive order. I'm not sure why they would necessarily ever choose that, but it's possible. I mean, I think city land and remnants are often challenging leftover pieces, so they tend to be complicated. So I think it's really about getting the right team in place on the city side and whoever the city ends up hiring to move forward with development. But there's no, at this point, special process specific to city projects, different from anything else.
Okay, so yeah, I can see that going both ways. On the one hand, it'd be nice if there should be fewer or quicker because the city has it. It's not dealing with an external partner, but on the other hand, it's almost giving the city project a bit of a leg up on the private project. So
yeah, I mean they
ultimately,
yeah, they go through the same process at the end of the day. Because the city's hiring, contractors to perform this work, and they're the ones actually submitting a lot of the designs.
Yeah. Robert, when roughly does that soft launch end? And it's going to be, nope, we're doing complete submission reviews from this time forward.
Yeah, we'll let our team kind of determine that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're thinking a couple months, but to allow enough applications to come in and enough advertisement of the new requirements. But I'd say maybe 2 or 3 months at most, and we'll formalize it.
Yeah, you're just socializing it so people get familiar.
That's right. Yeah, and that's the approach we often take when we create these new processes or requirements. We'll do a soft launch for a couple months and then start kicking projects back.
Okay.
And it's interesting. We've heard feedback from customers. And this was one thing that was really interesting on concepts. I mean, I think our data on concepts transitioning to formal applications is maybe 40% of them actually do. So we are spending a ton of time at the city working on applications that may never actually move forward. And then on the formal side, when people are ready to submit, because we weren't really doing any kind of check and you could kind of submit whatever, we've heard from customers who, and we have no idea, right, who's serious and who's not, but this is feedback we've had. Well, I'm serious. I am ready to go. I'm giving you all everything you need, but my project's held up because of the, you know, other projects who haven't really given you all the detail that's necessary. And so, you know, we don't see this, our goal is to not penalize projects, but to, again, better support projects so that you know what you're being asked to, because I think some of it today has been a little unclear. There hasn't been great guidance. And so really trying to come together to provide that clarity, to provide that certainty so that you know what you need to submit. And ideally that will mean fewer cycles at the end of the day. That is our goal, is we want these projects out the door sooner.
Yeah, and it should provide more efficiency downstream as well if there are fewer concepts that are on our active portfolio list. Because we don't have a separate set of project coordinators that I should call them project champions now, that look just at concepts or just at the formal site development plan. So if we can reduce their active portfolio, that should allow them to be more proactive with their truly active projects.
Okay. There's a question on building height review. Does that occur in the permitting process phase 3?
Yeah, I think that was a question for in relation to the Prop 123 phase 3 permitting requirement.
So there's some detail that we will need at the horizontal level because of the zoning code. It has various transparency and other kind of requirements. Denver Fire's looking at some things related to overall building height, but we think we're still kind of working out some of those details, but there'll be some information that's needed relative to kind of building height with phase 2, but we're not expecting, we don't think anyway, a whole set of elevations and things that you have to provide today. It'll be likely something less than what you're doing today.
Yeah, possibly just like the first floor elevations.
Okay. A couple more questions have come in. Has there been any discussion about a streamlined SDP process for small zone lots, similar to the separate process for large development reviews?
So I know a couple of our staff members have shared some ideas about smaller unit projects that didn't have anything to do with the zone lot size. So that's something that's been talked about. It's not something we are moving forward with at this point in time. That's on the list.
I think I appreciate the question, and there's been similar ones like that about, is there a streamlined process or expedited this or that? And I've seen where that's become a challenge for cities where they create all these separate streamlined or expedited processes, and then it means that you're doing all of your work on these expedited processes, and then that becomes the normal time frame. And if you're not checking one of those boxes, then good luck. I mean, it's going to take you forever. So if you instead look at, we're going across the board, we're fixing the entire process, regardless of project type or zoning classifications or what have you, then everybody benefits. Now, that may mean that some things that should take shorter time may not take as short as they will, but hopefully everybody gains some benefit. When you're going from 280 plus days on average to 180 days, that's good for everybody.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say some of our smaller zone lots tend to be the most complex as well. It kind of depends on where it's at. If it's, if they're demoing an existing building, then they're likely to be lots of easements going through it, other infrastructure needs, and we still need that coordinated review process.
Well, architects tell me all the time that the small projects are the easiest ones they do. Just kidding. Question if the slide deck will be available. Either we can, would you be comfortable with us emailing it out to you, or will it be posted on the website?
It's not something we have posted, but I think we shared it with you, Mike and John. So I don't have a concern if you want to share it out.
Okay, we can do that. Related to the concept of one and done, shifting the risk from formal to informal. There's a desire for clarity that the concept reviews are less robust. So teams and owners should be aware so they enter that risk knowingly. So if you're looking to be formal from the front end, it may take you longer, but if, what degree of informality are you willing to take on the front end so you don't waste all of your time on the 60% of projects that never go anywhere?
And this is such an interesting question because I think it's so dependent upon what we get at the concept plan stage because it varies wildly from 3 sheets of not a lot of detail to really detailed drawings. And so, the information our teams are going to provide is really going to be based on the level of detail that we get because that's what we have. And so I think what we have allowed for is if you want more certainty and you want to have a better sense, we'll do a second round of concept review, but we're not going past that second round and we're leaving it to the customer to request. So I believe that'll be made clear in the comments and in the concept meetings that happen, that's really up to the customers choosing. But I think there'll probably be some communication pieces we will continue to work out as we move this forward. But I think our goal is to really align with the design process and not be out of sync because we really were. And the next question about concept submittal requirements, I think that is a work in progress in looking through those. I know we're looking at as part of our proposition 1, 2, 3 and seeing how that might apply across the board. I don't think we have a draft at this point, but I'll check with the team and confirm.
A question on, well, just to compliment, I really appreciate that some of the policy changes that have been identified as you've gone through this process have led to a lot of streamlining. For example, the fire code, relying more on the base code than a lot of custom requirements. That's huge, especially here in Colorado as a home rule state where every local government jurisdiction has the right to put whatever they want in ordinance. And of course, all of our firms work. There's few that work in only one jurisdiction. So that's nice to get closer to base code. Do you think there's any more policy changes in the works that are along those lines, or will it be a matter of each department updating their code and having that philosophy of go with the base code unless there's an extraordinary reason to change it?
And I think most of our other regulations are very Denver specific, like the zoning code's very Denver specific. Our transportation requirements are very Denver specific. I mean, I think really it's our building and fire code that follow that national model. But if there's another one I'm not thinking of, let me know and we can certainly flag it for our team members.
Yeah.
I would say that, well, Jill, I think the plumbing code, I think there's opportunity to.
Yes.
Well, that's in the, sorry,
Yeah.
I consider that as part of the.
You said as part of the building, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's kind of the larger construction codes and then those more trade specific codes. I think there's some opportunity to adopt a national standard.
I want to go back to the business hour availability of staff. So is that going to be walk up or appointment based? And who do they get when they come? Is it somebody who's already familiar with their project, or is it, we're just making available whoever can be available?
So essentially we are having teams provide an on-call person so that if someone walks into the counter, there is someone who can at least talk to them. It's not going to be your assigned reviewer. If you've got a project, if you've got a project, you've got an assigned reviewer. Ideally, you're reaching out to that person and working through setting up a meeting if necessary to get whatever questions or issues may be answered. Right now, there are teams within community planning and development that offer appointments. It's in the mornings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Over time, I think as we see what the demand is, we'll explore, do more types of teams and review groups need to have appointments available to help with questions. I think some of the biggest things and we'll be tracking this over time, why are people kind of just coming in? Because they often don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And right, the website, we're trying with the DPO website, but there's more work to be done. It's just hard to tell where do you begin and who do you start with. And so, this is hopefully a way to help deal with that. Because I think what happens generally today is if the team at the permit counter can find someone, they connect you. If they can't, it's like, here's a phone number you can call. And if you've come downtown and you're likely already frustrated, that's not the great experience. And we really want to make sure that we are working to support our customer success. So I think appointments are still really key. If you've got a group, you need to talk to and they have appointments, we're going to drive that. But it's really having someone available for those who aren't really sure where to start, and making sure we're connecting and providing that higher level of customer service than we have been.
Yeah. And what are you thinking on the escalation team members? So when a project does need to be escalated, is that a team of specialists or more senior people, or are you pulling from the existing, staff?
So for the interdepartmental escalation, the first phase is with staff and supervisors. At phase 2, that's when the permitting office, and then we have departmental liaisons. So it's higher level leadership in each of the departments that I work with on a regular basis, and then they will get engaged as well, so that they have insight into issues. And really, again, our goal is to problem solve and reach resolution.
Couple more questions, related questions in the chat. So concept SDP submittal requirements being updated with this change. Yeah, I think that's going to be in the manual, is my presumption. Tom says, you mentioned different project coordinators often use different formats for SDB comments. Will that be curtailed by providing a standardized comment format that coordinators can use? Probably also in the manual, right?
That won't be the manual today. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it won't be in the manual right now, but there is an effort to standardize our comments across all disciplines, not just concept and formal site development plan. We want to create consistency across the board. I was actually just chatting with someone from our project coordination team yesterday about a comment letter template that we'd like to use, but we want to use the same kind of comment template across all of our different disciplines. So that's an effort that is that is started, and we hope to have something later this year.
And I just learned that the site development plan manual may be up as soon as today. So if it really is getting on the website, I may just wait a day or two to send you all the link. So that way we don't have if it gets updated and no one knows. So, but hopefully it's today, Wednesday, by the end of the week, I'll get you a link and it'll be online.
Great.
Perfect.
Well, John, I have some homework to do to send follow-ups to everybody on the call. We appreciate your time for joining us. And of course, we're also really pleased to see all the efforts being made just in those early statistics you shared on your 12/31/24 metrics, what's already been done, and this is going to build on that. So we also know it's a two-way conversation. It's not just, hey, we need the city to be more responsive and have better processes. There's things that we can do as design team members as well. So I look forward to a future conversation. Maybe we can decide, hey, let's talk again in 6 months or 9 months.
Yeah, we love that.
Just see how it's going.
Absolutely. Don't hesitate to reach out if there are questions. If you've got specific project issues, please work with your project teams to try to get those resolved. And I'll let you know when I'll send out the link, Mike and John, for the SDP manual. And then when we get the interdepartmental escalation process online as well, I'll make sure to share that.
Yeah. And I know that even though it's enumerated in the housing goals of high quality design and diversity, we want to see that across everything that comes to your department. And so we appreciate that you're looking for that, because that's what we like to do as well. So I think we're all in this together, and we want to see the most vibrant and progressive city on making this a great place to live as possible. So thanks for your partnership on that.
Same. Thank you all so much. Appreciate the time today.
Absolutely. Thank you all.